So this getting to know Jerry is going to take place 2005, right around this time of year, like in December. And I get plenty of emails and stuff asking me, Jerry, how did you wind up, since you're from New England, how did you wind up in Virginia? Well, I wound up in Maryland first. And this is the story behind that. As far as getting to know me and getting to know how I became who I am today, which is a far cry from who I was even 2 years ago, 3 years ago, to be honest with you. I guess we'll start at the beginning. Like, I grew up in Rhode Island, which was a very, very small place. It's a small town. I grew up in the East Bay, which is, it's an area that's surrounded with water. You're 5 minutes from a beach, no matter where you're at, anywhere in the state. We have big beaches like Newport, 1st, 2nd, 3rd Beach. We have, you know, the Jamestown Beach. I mean, we have Middletown Beach. We have every town, small town, like Warren has a beach, like a private Warren Beach, Bristol Beach, Barrington Beach. Like, you know, every town has a beach. Because it's not cities. The city would be Providence, but the towns have beaches too. And it's just a great place to grow up. Now that I left, I realized growing up on the water, and you were a very blue-collared area. Like the whole state, basically, blue-collar, very blue-collar. I'd say it's 85 to 90% blue-collar. The rest of them would be like corporate jobs and shit like that. But most of it's just hard manual labor work, doing whatever you're doing. Like, I raked gravel for a little while with my cousin, cut grass for a little while. You know, of course, we did the driveway shoveling and stuff like that. But I didn't realize what a hard place it was, how much it hardens you and toughens you up. You know, like, it really does. Like, people up in Rhode Island are very withered by the time they're my age. They're hardened. You know, like, time has beat the shit out of them due to the cold and being outside a lot, whether it's the summer or the cold, you know, doing the manual labor jobs and stuff like that. And I got wrapped up in the drugs, the heroin and the opiates and stuff like that. And once I got clean, you know, I was lucky enough to get a second chance. You know, I was working at strip club as a bouncer, and I ran into a friend of mine, Izzy, that I knew from the strip club and stuff. And he knew the captain at the time of a security firm, and they were doing private security, which we wound up shifting into private police later on in the Providence Place area. But I started with the security first, and I met with, you know, Izzy's friend. His name was Phil. And I met with him, and I don't think any of them really knew about my past, to be honest with you. Like, I think that maybe Izzy knew I was kind of messed up, but, you know, I kind of left out, to be honest with you, the part about, like, well, right now I'm bouncing in a club because I was addicted to heroin. You know what I mean? I got clean. I wasn't clean that long. I was clean maybe a year. And they decided to give me a shot. He's like, okay, let's go. You know, you're a big, strong guy. We can use somebody like here. Like, we'll start you out at the bottom. And I started as an officer. And I went in as an officer, and it was like real quick because I was much more in shape than everybody else. You know, I was probably 235 around there, and like had a small waist. So like when I had my shirts and stuff tailored for my uniform, like I had a good taper in the uniform and stuff. And, you know, I just kind of demeanor because I was not clean that long, and I was still navigating my way, knowing who I was, but I knew right from wrong. So I knew how to enforce things the right way. But just the size that I was and my demeanor, where I wasn't a dickhead, right? So between my demeanor and the size and shape I was, it garnered respect like right away, you know, because I was respectful to my superiors, and I was respectful to everybody else that was on my level. And shit, if there was a janitor somewhere, I was respectful to him because I had learned respect over being a heroin addict, right? I learned to respect people and learned that I'm not better than any of them. So I became an officer, and that was great for a little while. You know, Phil got moved up to captain. He was lieutenant. Then he got moved up to captain and eventually director. And Phil was actually detrimental in getting me really straightened out. He gave me opportunities. Like, he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I'll be forever grateful to Phil Sergeson, Captain Sergeson, Director Sergeson, Lieutenant Sergeson when I first met him, for the rest of my life, for giving me a chance, because he didn't have to, and he did. And then while we were doing private security, he really pushed for me to become an instructor, which I didn't want to do. I didn't know anything about it, but he's like, this is what we're going to do. I think you'd be really good at this. So let's get your certifications in. And I was granted the role of instructor. Although I never did any instructing, I was granted the role of it, which I had, you know, had gone through the work of it. And then you know, they would use me for examples and stuff. Like when we had handcuffing class, there was a exercise where they gave me a fake gun and I was the perp, and they put me on the ground face down. I had the gun in my hands like this, clamped. They said, now put 2 officers on each side, and they were trying to pull my arms apart to try to cuff me, and they couldn't get my arms apart. And they're like, pull, and like, those motherfuckers were not getting my arms apart. I was too strong. And the instructor dropped to his knees, turned my head, took his knuckle, shoved it in my ear, and started twisting it. In the previous classes, they had done that exercise, and they literally, the people just let go. When I didn't let go, they were like, what the fuck? You know, it like earned more respect, you know? So there was, moved up to, at this point, a sergeant, a shift supervisor. I was actually in charge of the second shift. All the officers in the second shift, I was in charge of paperwork, any kind of detentions that they detained suspects and stuff like that, whatever went on. I was responsible for that now. So I went from being a heroin addict, not knowing what the fuck I'm going to do in my life, to being granted a gift by Phil Sergeson as an officer, eventually pushed up to sergeant and made an instructor. And that was all within like maybe a year or two's time. And it came to a time where I met this girl, her name was Angelica. And Angelica was graduating from Johnson & Wales University. And we met and hit it off, and it was a very intense relationship. And she graduated, and she was going to have to move back to California with her parents. And I was just so into her, I said, you know what, don't, just stay with me. You know, just fucking just stay with me. You know, like we'd only been dating for like a couple of months. And figure out your next move. I just don't want to let you go. You know, that's pretty much what it was. And she wound up getting a job in Bethesda, Maryland, which I didn't really know where the fuck Maryland was. But I was like, okay, cool. So she's like, I have to move to Maryland. What do you think? And I kind of looked around. I said, well, there's really no place to go here up, right, with this job technically. I can go to lieutenant, captain. But what was happening was I was seeing the people that we were dealing with, and I was not liking the criminal aspect of it, even though I myself was a criminal before. I wasn't liking that aspect of it. I saw, you know, guys hit their women, and then we take them into custody, hand them over to Providence police, and then they'd fucking be right out on the streets because the girl didn't want to press charges. And I watched the kid crying because his father was being locked up, and his mother was saying, no, let him go, let him go. He didn't do nothing after he just slapped her in front of 100 people, you know, like. I kind of stepped back and said, I'm sick of this shit. Like, I need a change in my life. I can't do this. Like, the negativity was, you know, kind of getting to me. Because, like, as a, you know, an officer or a sergeant or whatever, your job is to make sure people don't get hurt. I mean, that's pretty much it, right? Don't break the laws. Don't let people get hurt. So you really see kind of the scumbag, and we start working with the gang squad and start seeing the Providence Police's overlap. So their graphs and their charts as to, you know, the different types of crimes and who was committing them and fucking shit like that. We're getting information that the general public doesn't have, and I'm like, the world fucking sucks. So I'm going to go back to fucking training. Like, I got to go back to personal training. I don't want to do this anymore. So when Angelica said she was moving, it was a clean start for me. I found out that people down in Maryland could make a lot more money than in Rhode Island. So I called Gold's Gym. I talked to the manager in D.C. It was on Midtown D.C. And she said, come on down for an interview. So I drove from Rhode Island to Maryland about 12 hours. With stops, so about 10 and a half hours, you know, with stops, but it took me 12 to get to the city. Excuse me. I did the interview. She said, all right, thanks, we'll be in touch. I went back home to Rhode Island, drove right back home to Rhode Island. And then I got a call for an interview. Okay, cool. Yeah, a second interview. Cool. Can you come down Thursday? This is like Tuesday. Like, fuck. So Wednesday, I got to drive down to Maryland again. I drive down to Maryland about 10 and a half, 12 hours again. Do the second interview with the other people at the gym. Okay, we'll be in touch. I go back home, get the call maybe a week later for a third time to come down and do a workout. Take the boss through a workout, show them what I know. Drive again down there, do the fucking workout, come back. And I finally get the call, so we'd like to hire you. When are you coming down? So Angelica went down about a month before I did. Got the apartment situated. And we had no furniture, we had no bed, we had no couch, we had nothing. We had nothing, no dressers. Our clothes were piled around the room, framing the room in piles folded because we didn't have any, we had nothing. We didn't have a bed. We were sleeping on the floor on a blanket. In the living room, we had a TV on sitting on a milk crate, and we had no fucking couch. Like, that's where we were living. And about a month goes by, and I left my dogs with my parents so we could get settled in, and I couldn't be without them anymore. And I told her, we got to go back home and get them. So she said, okay, we drove back home. We got Bruno and Nico. We came back home. We had 2 dogs, us, no furniture in the fucking house. Looking back, and I was on Suboxone. Like, I was at the tail end of my fucking addiction. And I just remember thinking, like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this is, I mean, I didn't have much in Rhode Island, but I have nothing here, you know? And then little by little, one thing at a time, it's like we bought a bed. We actually got a mattress from her uncle, gave us a mattress. We threw it on the floor and we slept on that for a couple months after, because we were on the floor for like 2 months. And we get the mattress, slept on that for a couple months. Then we went to the furniture store and got a bed. Found that we had a bed but no furniture, and eventually we wound up getting a couch. And we wound up making do. It took us about maybe a year to get everything in the apartment, like to live like normal fucking people. And we were eating like tuna and fucking ramen noodles and just random shit like that. We really weren't doing that good. We were doing our best, you know. A little 800 square foot apartment was about $1,100 a month in Maryland, which was much more expensive than Rhode Island. And it was there that I was working at Gold's Gym, and then at Gold's Gym, interesting enough, Jem Elliott, who's a close friend of mine to this day, he's got me through so many things, especially one of my breakups. He was there for me when I had a really bad breakup with Angelica, matter of fact, that same girl. And Jem was my boss. He was the area director for Gold's Gym in the DC area, and he said, Jerry, I want to make you a manager of the gym, a fitness manager. You're going to run the personal training department. I said, dude, I can't do this. He said, why not? He said, I got faith in you, man. You can fucking do this. Just delegate. I'm going to teach you how to do it. Showed me the ropes, put me in the biggest Gold's Gym on the East Coast money-wise. We generated the most income on any fucking Gold's Gym on the East Coast. And we hit numbers and numbers and numbers and numbers. We were nailing those fucking numbers until I got a big argument one day on a conference call with the president of Gold's Gym. That's the story that I put up before. Whole long story, basically short, he wanted me to fucking make my trainers feel like shit. He wanted me to push the trainers, make them feel like shit, and I had them working like a fucking well-oiled machine. There's no way I was going to do that. Just because everybody needed to do it because he said. I told him, I said, there's no way, you can go fuck yourself. I said that right on the phone, and apparently that was my demise because you can't swear at the president of a company, apparently. Especially when you're in a conference call with a bunch of other people. The next day they came in and said, we're going to need your resignation. If you don't resign, we're going to fire you. If we fire you, you can't be rehired. If you resign, we can hire you again in the future. And Jem did not want to do this. Like, he was off. He had actually removed himself from that position. We had a new guy that was doing it. He didn't want to fire him. But he's like, this dude, there's nothing I can do. I've been told this is done or I'm fucking fired. Then you're fired. We're all fired. So they fired me, and I went over to Rockville Fitness at the time and started to piece together my own business because I didn't have anything else. So basically, at this point, I was shit out of luck. It was either start your own business or start over from scratch. And at this point, the bills that I had, I needed that amount of money that I had coming in. And if I went on my own, I wouldn't be splitting the money with the club anymore. I'd be actually making like 3 times the amount if I went on my own. So actually, I got a pay raise by being fired. So I went off and I started my business in 2007. I started training people on my own. And I stayed at Rockville Fitness. I'm still there now. It's called Team Eckenroad now. It changed hands, but I'm still there now. And it's been today, this is going to be 12 years that I've been at that gym doing my own thing. When I think back, like I was so scared and so worried and so like anxious to do my own thing. And here we are over a decade later. And it's still going strong and I'm doing well and it's still successful. And it's like, I had the shit to get off the pot. I had no choice. You know what I mean? I had a choice. I could do what a lot of people would have done and just found a job like 7-Eleven or like a mall or something like that, just to have the money coming in. Or I could have taken a chance on myself and tried to build something. And I took that chance on myself and I built the BioS3 training business there, which has then been kind of built out over the course of, globally, online, etc. And then, I had met Carrie. You guys remember Carrie and stuff. I was still doing the training there. I was still living in Maryland. I moved from the apartment that I had with Angelica into a condo with 2 roommates, which is a whole other story. That was amazing. Naland and Chris. Chris had Asperger's, and I'd never known anybody with Asperger's before. So my roommate, I learned a lot from him about Asperger's. And Nalan was this very caring, giving, sweet woman who was just like, man, I wish that I could see her today to talk to her. Like, I don't even know how to find her, how I would even talk to her. But she had this very rare skin problem. Like, if I went up to her and went like this on her arm, she would like break out in like fucking hives and shit. She had some kind of like sensitive skin thing. So she was like special soaps and she would wear long sleeves in case she bumped into someone and stuff like that. It was very like interesting. So I got like new people in my life that were teaching me things in that condo. Then when I met Carrie, we moved out of the condo into a house that we rented, and I stayed in that house until I moved in here with Erin. And when Erin and I started dating, the Erin thing is a whole nother like thing. I think what Erin and I might do is we might sit down together and tell our story together, because I think you guys would get a kick out of it. We tell our story to people in person all the time, and they just fucking laugh because both of us know what really happened, but we have our own views. We have our own descriptions of how it happened and stuff like that. So I think we'll do that whole thing then. But that's how I wound up in Virginia. And I wound up in Maryland first from Rhode Island. Now I'm in Fairfax, Virginia, because Erin had actually bought this condo before we got together. We were just starting to hang out when her mother's actually a real estate agent now, retired CAA, but now works has a real estate agency thing in her retirement. And when her mother actually got this listing, she's like, you should check this out. It's a really good price. It's amazing. It's like brand new, like a little bit of paint, like, and you can customize it to your own thing. And I remember walking in here with her, and it was like old people that lived here. And we were walking around, and Erin was looking. She's like, I don't know, the walls are a strange color. And I was like, we haven't even started dating yet. We're just hanging out. I said, why don't you just paint the walls? She kind of looked at me, and her mother's like, yeah, just paint the walls. She wanted to buy in the place. So this is where we live now. And we've been here and happy since this year, actually this past week. Yeah, I think this past week, 15, 16, 17, this past week, 3 years I've been living here with Erin. And she's been living here 3 years in, I think, July or something like that. So she's going on her 4th year, and I'm going on the 4th year now too. But you never know how things are going to work out. But if there's not an opportunity for you where you are, don't be scared to go where the opportunities are. People do it all the time. Where I come from in Warren, that's not how that works. You stay in Warren. You take whatever job you can find. Like I have friends that still, and there's nothing wrong with this whatsoever. I have friends that still work at diners that they worked at in high school. They're 40-something years old, have families, and they're still waitressing at these diners. Like these little diners that are not, like, you probably wouldn't even see it when you drove by. They're still waitressing at these diners. And that's just kind of how it goes. Like, you get whatever job you can, try to do the best you can, try to make your bills and stay afloat. And you live close to your family so that your kids can grow up next to your family. And then, your parents pass away, you inherit their house, and you either live in their house or you sell their house, but you still stay around there because your other cousins and aunts and uncles and stuff are around there. And even after everybody's gone and passed away and you're the old ones then you don't really move away because your kids are there, your little nieces and nephews, maybe your grandkids are there. So you kind of are, I don't want to say stuck, but the mentality is a very stuck mentality in Rhode Island that you don't get out of. Not many people actually get out of there and do something with their life other than become Warren, Rhode Island. Like Warren recycles itself. Like you're born there, you become Warren. Like you become part of it. And I love going back because Warren is a huge chunk. Like I'll show you guys right this thing right here. I got this, Erin got this for me. It's the state of Rhode Island. And where that heart is where Warren is. Like the heart gets stuck exactly where you live, and that's Warren. And Warren is such a small place that most people you drive through, you won't even know you're there. You have no clue. And it was the dumbest little bullshit town when I lived there. I hate this place. I want to get out, blah, blah, blah. I go back there, I smile, I get a lump in my throat when I walk in there just from, there's bad times, but there's a lot of good times there too. And I remember growing up, and I remember, when I drive down these roads I haven't been on in a while, I get this nostalgia, and I enjoy being there, and the smell of the salt water no matter where you're at. And when you get down towards the beaches, the low tide has a very fishy smell, which I think some people go, fishy smell, but it's home to me. It smells like the ocean, And you don't realize that shit until you leave, and then you appreciate everything that you fucking had when you were younger. Like you really appreciate it afterwards. So hopefully you guys understand a little bit now about how I got here and where I come from. And I mean, some of you probably know this stuff already because I've talked a little bit about it, but these in-depth stories about like getting to know Jerry and stuff, I think are real important because I think that a lot of you really do know the me now, right? Because these videos that I put up in social media posts and meeting you guys at expos and stuff, you really do get to know me. But my past, the pieces that I've kind of, the highlight reel, the certain things that are like the big things, but what about the little things that kind of forged who I am? You know what I mean? Like the things that you may make you stop and think about yourself and what forged you to be who you are. It may help you change something about yourself that you want to change or whatever. You know what I mean? I like the idea is you watch these videos and you get to know me better. Either you get to relate to me or you don't relate to me, but maybe I'm someone like so that way there you can relate to me. But either way, the idea for doing this videos is to make to make you guys look inside yourself, your past, your future, your present, and see the bad things, but be content and happy with what they did to you and how you turned out. And realize that you don't, every day you're evolving, so you don't have to be any way that you don't want to be. You can be something else if you just decide to do it and just fucking go for it. So if there's something that you're thinking like, well, I don't know if I can do that, yeah, you can. Like nobody from my town leaves, not many people leave and do anything successful or live any other way of life than what they know. And I did it. And I'm nobody special. I am nothing special. I'm the average, ordinary guy who literally just said, fuck it, I'm tired of where I'm at and I want something more and I want something different. From a very young age, I used to tell my parents, Mom, I'm meant for more. I was like 10. I'm like, Mom, I'm meant for more than this. Like, my mom would laugh at me. She's like, oh, yeah, you're definitely meant for more than this. So you can, but, you know, they were some like pretty supportive of saying, like, you can be anything you want. You can do anything you want. Like, they said things to me as a kid that you're supposed to say to kids. But that feeling wasn't behind it. Like, they actually believed it. You know, I feel like my parents, you know, my dad came from, I mean, he's a whole nother story. We'll get into that story in another one, getting to know Jerry. But my mom, where she comes from in Rhode Island, she was recycled just like everyone else, right? So they want to encourage you to do better and be best, do what's best for you, and try to get more and be more and just be better, live your best life. But at the same time, they also are realistic of the fact of how much it takes and how you have to leave everything else behind in order to do that. And most people don't have that in them up there. Like, it's not bred into them. So be aware, guys. If you're not where you want to be, you can be. You got to go all in and take a chance. And it could backfire. Like, I went from having my friends and family and a place to live and a bed and all that shit to sleeping on a fucking floor with barely having any food, not having a fucking dresser. Like, if you saw where we took that step backwards to get here, I think a lot of people wouldn't take that step because it sucks to go backwards. It's painful to go backwards, but pain is part of growing, right? Sometimes you got to go backwards to go forwards. And I didn't know that. You know, I thought I was going to come down here, it's just going to be a better life right away. And when we got into that, like, it was like I was just kind of thrown into it, not ready for it. And my personality is just to fight, you know, just to fight my way through, to keep pushing. That's how I was raised. So it wound up working out. But then I was able to look back, like now, and say, this is why this was like this. This is why this worked like that. This was a stepping stone. This was exactly how this was supposed to go. And you connect the dots and it all makes sense. But at the time, sometimes it just be overwhelming. But just know, like, if you're in a spot where you're overwhelmed right now and you're like, this is not going to fucking change, it's going to change. Nothing can stay like this forever. It has to do this at some point. It has to. There's no fucking other way. There is good and bad, positive and negative, forward and backwards. The poles pull in different directions all the time. Even the poles switch, right? It's polarizing. The poles switch. Everything switches and changes. You just have to be able to recognize that no matter how bad it is, the good part is on the right around the bend. And before you get to that good part, don't quit. Because just about when you're about to quit, you've had enough. That means you're getting close to being where you want to be and the change happening. You just have to be that much fucking tougher to stick it out for a little while longer, and everything changes. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Getting to Know Jerry. I'm Bio3 and I approve this message. I'm Bio3 and I approve this message. Yeah, we're out.